Shannon, you'll do the motions. Julia's going to second, if you don't mind. Well, Charlie's on the phone, and Stephen O'Brien's on the phone. We're just waiting on BCAM. Hi, Joe. Counselor. We're not on yet. I'm waiting for Bill. Two. Bill's back. Yeah. Liz, do not be grumpy. Yes, that's better. Ready? Okay, you good? Good evening, everyone. It being 7:30 on Tuesday, November 15th, 2022, we will begin our town council meeting. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silence for all those who serve in our military at home and abroad and for their families. Thank you. Clerk Semino, if we can begin with a roll call, please.
Councillor Barrica?
Here.
Councillor Flaherty?
Here.
Councillor Hume?
Here.
Councillor Mackin is not attending this evening. Councillor Maglio? Here. Councillor O'Brien?
Present.
Councillor Reynolds?
Here.
Councillor Ringus is not attending this evening. Councillor Ryan?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Clerk Semino. We do have two councilors who are participating remotely this evening, Councillor O'Brien and Councillor Ryan. Therefore, all votes will be by roll call this evening. Okay, we are going to start off with our announcements. First, I would like to draw everyone's attention, and maybe our BCAM crew can do some close-ups of the artwork we have around on the council desks. We rolled this out in March, and we have a new batch of artwork from our students at Braintree Public Schools. So thank you so much to the Braintree Public Schools Art Department, led by Julie Camposano, for their support in our public art initiative here at the council. And I want to recognize the students whose artwork is displayed on our desks and encourage residents to come down to Town Hall and see it from themselves. So we have Wen Hao Shi from East Middle School, grade 7, Maeve Byrne, East Middle School, grade 7, Sarah Kilpatrick, Liberty Elementary School, grade 5, Nathan Rapport, Liberty Elementary School, grade 5, William Farrow, East Middle School, grade 6, Audrey Shea, East Middle School, grade 5, Jarvis Liu, BHS student. We have Joshua Bessie, BHS student, Ashaz Ahmed, also BHS student, and Conrad Lindenfeld, grade 4 from Hollis Elementary. So again, thank you to all of our students for adorning our desks with your beautiful artwork, and it adds so much to the council chambers, and it's with a lot of appreciation and heartfelt thanks. I would also want to thank Mayor Kokoros and Braintree Veterans Service Officer Vincent Fontaine for a thoughtful and lovely Veterans Day ceremony last Friday. I also want to give thanks and appreciation to Councilor Reynolds, who is our lone veteran on the council. So on behalf of the council, thank you for your service, Councilor Reynolds. And the last announcement I have for this evening is on November 1st, Governor Baker presented the 39th annual George L. Hanna Memorial Awards for Bravery to local and state law enforcement officers. We should be very proud that 3 of Braintree's officers were recognized. Canine officers Cushing and Siebert and Officer Donahue were all recipients of this award for their actions on June 4, 2021. You can go on to mass.gov, look up Hanna Awards. You can get the full list, and it's quite an impressive documentation of all of our public service officers, who, some of whom paid the ultimate price on that list. So kudos to the Braintree Police Department for that award. Are there any other announcements? Councilor Hume?
Thank you, Madam President. Next Thursday, which is Thanksgiving Day, believe it or not, it's coming rather quickly, the Braintree High School Athletic Association is holding their annual 5K Turkey Trot. It begins at Braintree High School. 7 a.m. is registration, and the run starts at 8 a.m. If you're on social media, you can go to the Braintree High School Athletic Association Facebook page for sign-up details, or they are on runsignup.com. It's quite a lengthy thing. It's runsignup.com/race/MA/Braintree/BHSAA Turkey Day 5K. But I'm sure you can reach out to the high school or anybody involved in that committee to get more details. All the money from this goes back to all the athletic programs at Braintree High School, East Middle School, and South Middle School. It's one of their biggest fundraisers for the year, and it's a great time to see Braintree High alumni, residents, kids, people of all ages attend that event. Great standing tradition here in Braintree. And I just want to thank everybody. Lastly, the Nelson Chin second annual Memorial Golf Tournament was held October 14th at Braintree Municipal Golf Tournament. It was quite a rainy day, but we did get the game off, and it was great. DPW Director Jim Arsenal was there, and I think you played. But thank you to everyone who participated, who supported, and volunteered. It was a great showing of support for a truly one-of-a-kind who is irreplaceable in this town, Nelson Chin, very good friend of mine. So thank you to everyone who made that day a huge success. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you very much, Councilor Hume. Are there any other announcements from councilors? Okay. All right, moving on then, and I know we do have on the agenda, and we're trying to find the lineup for the Marge Crispin reminder. So when we find that, we will come back to it, if that's all right with councilors. So without further ado, we will move on to our approval of minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of August 2nd, 2022 and September 7th, 2022?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you very much, Councilors Hume and Flaherty. We have a motion and a second. Clerk Semino, roll call vote, please.
Councilor Baraka?
Yes.
Councilor Flaherty?
Yes.
Councilor Hume?
Aye.
Councilor Mackin's absent. Councilor Maglio?
Aye.
Councilor O'Brien?
Abstain.
Sorry about that. Councilor Reynolds?
Aye.
Councilor Ringens is absent. And Councilor Ryan?
Aye.
6 in favor, 1 abstain, 2 absent.
Thank you, Clerk Semino. All right, I would like to take a minute and just recognize the department heads who are in attendance with us this evening, and thank you for being with us tonight. I know we have quite a few members of our town staff here. So Chief of Staff Nicole Taub, Director of Finance Ed Spellman. We have our, from our DPW Director Jim Arsenal, and Jeffrey Kuntz here as well. And I'm looking out at the audience, and I'm sorry if I'm missing. I see firefighter Fred Viola and Peter Morin from our Charter Review Committee, and Dennis Gallagher as well from our Retirement Board. So thank you all so much for being here with us this evening. All right, we're going to move on to our old business. The next two council orders are both public hearings. We need to open them and continue to July 3rd, 2023 at 7:30 p.m. The mayor, the zoning, I'm sorry, thank you. I'm out of order. I apologize. I missed it on my sheet. Thank you, Councilor Hume. We're going to go back to communications. And we do have Mr. Morin here tonight to join us for 06622, which is our Charter Review Committee. Thank you, Mr. Morin. Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you and good evening, Madam President and members of the council. Just, if I can just, there's 3 different mouses here. I'm trying to figure out which one do I use. Okay. All right.
Also do up and down.
Oh, that's too easy. Thank you very much. All right, I'm happy to be here this evening, along with my colleagues on the Charter Review Commission, Jeff Kuntz, Pat Needham, and Jean Giagrandi. Charter Review is mandated by the Charter every year with a 0 or a 5 in it. We are behind schedule due to COVID. We were about to go to public comment, and we had scheduled public hearings in April of 2020 when we were interrupted by COVID. So tonight, basically, I'm here to let you know on behalf of the Charter Review Committee that we are reviving and that we are starting our process anew, and to tell you a little bit, to give the public a little bit of an idea about the Charter and about the process that we intend to follow to seek input and to come up with recommendations to the council and the mayor under the supervision of the town solicitor regarding any recommendations for changes to the current charter. So with that, let me see if I can get, the charter was created as a result of a home rule petition under Chapter 189 of the Acts of 2005. There had been a previous charter commission that had been approved back in 2003 and 2004 that unsuccessfully proposed a change or a mayor-council form of government. I chaired the unsuccessful one. Subsequently, the matter went back to town meeting, who came up with a strong mayor-council form of government that closely tracked Weymouth's form of government, and that was adopted, and pursuant to the referendum that the town passed, Chapter 189, Home Rule Petition of the Acts of 2005 was passed and became law, creating the charter. The charter basically is essentially our constitution, or the town's constitution. Creates executive and legislative branches. The mayor is the executive, the council is the legislature. Separates powers between the branches and balances them. The mayor needs consent of the council for budget and appointment choices that he makes. The council may inquire for information, but may not direct departments or execute actions of departments to act. Those are the 2 primary branches that the charter creates. I will now go into what each of the articles, just in very brief, what each of the articles covers. Section 2 covers council powers, the authority of each branch, the authority of the council, how the council operates, terms of offices, and roles and appointments that the council plays. Section 3 contains the mayor's authorities and powers and delineates them as well. And basically, that's the roadmap that both the mayor and the council follow. Article 4 in the charter basically delineates the authority of the school committee. It closely tracks the statutory authority given to schools by the Commonwealth, adds the mayor to the schools, to the school committee, and identifies the terms of office for the school committee members. Article 5 is administration. That's where the departments that are created, the DPW department, finance, planning and community development, human resources, licensing, and inspections are all created and given descriptions of their duties in Article 5. There are other departments and other appointments and committees that are also delineated in Article 5 under administration. Article 6 is the finance and fiscal procedures article, which delineates the fiscal year and the budget process, describes the council's review of the budget process, contains a section on allotments, identifies the responsibility for creation of a capital improvement plan, and the requirement of an independent audit on an annual basis. It basically it gives the schedule for the budget review process and lays out when certain things have to be done by in order to comply with the charter and set up basically for the coming fiscal year. Article 7 talks about the elections, sets the times for elections, describes the signature requirements, how names are placed on ballots, describes how the districts are established, how citizen initiatives and citizen referendum processes work, the recall provisions, and how vacancies can be filled for offices when individuals are unable to serve or their terms are interrupted. Article 8 are general provisions that deal with publication of rules adopted. It requires the charter review process, the oath of office that each office holder takes, how the charter is enforced, and requires that an annual report be produced by the town every year. And Article 9 is transitional provisions. This was really an article that really was impactful during the transition from the old form of government to the new form of government, about which laws stayed in place and how things would transition. A lot of it is now obsolete because we've completed that transition. The charter review is required, as I mentioned briefly, by Article 8. It is not described, the process itself is not described in great detail. There isn't, there isn't a description of what the review should consist of, or how many meetings, or how the meetings should be held, or whatnot. It does state that the review is conducted by a committee that is appointed by both the mayor and council. It is also under the supervision of the town solicitor, and that we make the committee that is created makes recommendations and gives it a suggested timeline for those recommendations to be made. The review process that we've talked about in our 2 meetings that we've had since being revived is starting from a different point than we started originally. And when we initially did this review, when we initiated this review, it was more of a internal review where we were looking for everything from grammatical and punctuation errors and things like that. And we were going to come up with recommendations and then put them out for public input. That was the way we were approaching it prior in 2019, I believe, in early 2020 when we initiated. Upon reflection, we're going to start with public input and then work our way forward. Take the input from the public, synthesize it, and try to come up with recommendations. So we're going to start with a series of public hearings and public meetings to try to solicit input in any way possible. We're going to hold multiple public sessions. We're also going to seek additional input through more modern and less traditional means, electronically and in writing. We're going to review public suggestions that we receive in public meetings, once again, under the supervision of the solicitor in accordance with Article 8. And we hope to provide a report with recommendations in 2023. I stated in May of 2023, but there's a good suggestion that we may want to wait for the work of that the planning department is doing on their efforts, to wait for that to be synthesized so that we can incorporate some of their efforts into our recommendations if it seems applicable. So we may be later than May as a result, but it may make sense to do it that way. So that's basically where we are. We anticipate to start having our public hearings in January, to have our first public meeting. The idea of tonight, once again, is to just let the council and the public know that, we are initiating this process. We intend to have multiple opportunities, both formal meetings and otherwise, for individuals to provide input on ideas that they have for modifying or changing the charter. It can be on any aspect of town government. I think, and it's been my observation, and I am not nearly as involved as I was several years ago in Braintree, as I worked down the road a little bit. But there is a, in comparison to prior to the charter being implemented, there is a general satisfaction in comparison to the previous form of government and how this form of government is operating for the town. There are always things that can be improved upon, and there are many lessons that can be learned, particularly in how we solicit and cultivate public participation, particularly in light of what we've all experienced in the last couple of years. And so incorporating the lessons that we've learned to better serve the public, this is an opportunity for us to do this. And I'm pleased to have been asked to serve on the charter review, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have at this point.
Thank you so much, Mr. Moran, and I know we're grateful for your service to the town and your expertise on this front. And I also want to recognize there are 2 counselors serving on the Charter Review Committee, and I want to publicly thank them for their service on that committee, because it is an important and lengthy task. So thank you to Councilor Hume and Councilor Ringus, who's unfortunately not here tonight, for serving on that committee in your capacity as counselors. So I'm happy to open it up to questions. I'd ask counselors to just keep their questions to the process, since content will be reviewed at the public, in the public realm, as the public hearings get underway in January. And Mr. Moran, I would welcome you back maybe quarterly to help provide us with updates along the way. Does anybody have questions? Councilor Flaherty.
Can you describe what will happen once you make a recommendation to the council in May of 2023? What is the steps that come after that?
The steps that come after that, and I would defer to the solicitor, but there would be considerations initiated, probably, the recommendations are made, and then I believe it would be to the mayor to initiate any recommended changes to the charter, and then the council would have to review those, act on them. It would most likely require home rule petition action by the legislature as well.
And as I understand it, you've combed through the document now to find all kinds of things. Some of them are very minor, like punctuation errors and the like, and some of them will be more substantive, I imagine, once you've finished the process. But how do we decide on the document? Do we do it as a whole, or do we identify individual changes?
I think there'll be, I think things will naturally fall into two categories. I think there'll be, some of the functions will be ministerial in nature, where we're going to, upgrade or update some of the language so that it more properly reflects intent. And then there'll be substantive changes or recommendations that may or, that may be made regarding a variety of areas that may be addressed. They'll look at, there may be an examination of terms of office. It could be anything. It could be, process, legislative calendar, things like that. It could be on anything that is brought up.
But once we set aside the more minor changes, and we're left with just the more substantive ones, do we vote on the substantive ones as a group, as one battery, or do we vote on those individually?
It can be presented either way, and I would defer to the town solicitor. You could do it as an omnibus package, or you could do it individually, as individual pieces. So it would really, depend on the nature of what is being considered. I think the ministerial stuff could be done all in one piece, but I think that anything substantive would probably would be likely to be looked at individually.
Well, we've never done it before, so it will be interesting to see how it unfolds.
It will be.
Thank you, Councilor Flaherty. Councilor Reynolds.
Thank you, Madam President. Good evening, Mr. Moore, and thank you so much for being here this evening.
Thank you,
Thank
Council.
you for your years of service and continuing to do so. You must be a glutton for punishment. But we're grateful for that. I just wanted to ask if you could just expand upon a little bit the thought that you had concerning the Master Plan Steering Committee. I believe that's what you may have been referring to. And its final report as something that you would also take into consideration.
That's correct, and thank you. In my advanced years, I was struggling to remember the title of the master plan, but it makes sense for us to give time for the master plan process to be completed, so that if it's necessary to incorporate any of their recommendations into the charter review recommendations, that the council could do so at the same time. I think it's an efficiency of process that makes sense. So we are going to try to make sure that our schedule harmonizes with the master plan process.
Thank you. That's very clear.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Councilor Reynolds. Any other? Councilor Hume?
Thank you, Madam President. Hello, Mr. Moran. Thank you for chairing our committee. It's always great to work with you. One of the things that I mentioned in the committee, and I want residents at home to know, is most people are not even aware that there's a charter for the town of Braintree, and why should they be involved? This document is crucial to anybody who wants to be involved and has a say in the leadership of all boards within this community, because this is how our form of government, the change in the form of government came about because of this. So if anyone has any questions, any remote, any thoughts, questions, how we should conduct this, reach out to anybody that Mr. Moran said. You can reach out to the clerk of the council. She can get you in touch with Mr. Moran or any one of the committee members. Reach out to myself or Councilor Ringus, who sit on the Charter Review Committee. But this is so important. I know everybody's busy. There's not anyone who's not busy nowadays, but this is vital to the success and the leadership within this community, because this document, and it is available on the town website, so you can look at it and review it. It is quite extensive. as Mr. Moran said, when we first met a couple years back, we struggled, the very question that Councilor Flaherty said, like, just how to start the process of looking at it. And it started with punctuation, and then we broke it down bit by bit. But there's many of us. There's a great amount of people who serve on this committee, a lot of talent who sits on the committee. So I strongly encourage the community, if you see this, hopefully Fred Hansen is picking this up. There'll be more information coming out on how to spread the word. And if anybody at home has any ideas on how we spread the word, feel free. We are open. Like, this is a public committee. It's going to be public meetings. We were so close. We had Saturday dates. We have evening dates set up before COVID, and then COVID started, and we were hopeful, maybe in a couple months, and then here we are today in 2022, and we're starting all over again. So thank you, Peter, for your leadership and all your guidance on this. Greatly appreciated.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you, Councilor Hume, and thank you for your leadership as well. It's always a pleasure to serve on a committee with you. This is, and just to reemphasize your points, this is an opportunity to, for all residents to participate. And it is also an opportunity for people to learn about, how your government functions, how to get things done. If you're interested in, if you wanted to change an ordinance, how would you do it? This process, this review process can inform you on that. If if there's something that bothers you about how government operates, this is the instruction manual as to how the town government functions. You follow these instructions. It basically, and we're just looking to, as we're required by the charter, we're looking at opportunities to improve upon it. There are many things I think it does well, but we can be informed by our experiences and find ways to do things better. And just the remote participation and what we've been able to do with that, and what other communities have been able to do with that in the last 2 years, is enlightening, and it opens opportunities for individuals that may not be able to come to a meeting physically, but they can participate. And are we incorporating enough of that in the way that we describe our government's operations? Just things like that, that we can improve upon. How we can engage residents in government, in assisting our government or playing a role in government that haven't been able to do so otherwise. How can we reach out to people that we're not reaching yet? This is an opportunity to do that. So it's kind of nuts and bolts. It can be kind of dry, but it's important.
Councilor Maglio, did you have a question?
One quick question, if you could just circle back on one thing, similar to what Councilor Flaherty was asking. So the target is May of 2023. That's a goal for when recommendations would be made to the council. So does this body vote on it, or do we just hear the recommendations and give feedback, and then it makes its way to the mayor's office?
I think that I think it will go to both, the mayor and the council, but I think that any changes would probably be are likely to be initiated in the mayor's office. But ours is just a job to make recommendations, and what is done with those recommendations really, goes to the mayor and to the council, I believe.
So then it would go to the mayor's office and then come to the council?
I believe it would. And town solicitor can correct me if I'm wrong.
Solicitor Taub, would you like to add anything?
Sorry, I didn't leave. I just was standing in the back because I was so close to the screen over here. Yeah, so the way I envision it is that the recommendations would come from the committee to the mayor. With his review, he would then send a package down to the council for review and ultimate approval before it proceeds into the state approval process. And I think along with what Mr. Moran was saying, it would be one package of kind of the administrative, ministerial, clerical changes that could probably be approved in one fell swoop. And then while the entire proposed revised charter would come down as one, we would need to have some discussion internally about what that approval process looks like, whether it's an all or nothing, or like ordinances that have come before this body, you can make amendments or you can choose to remove or revise certain things from there. And then that approved final product would go back to the mayor for ultimate approval authority, and then it would go to the state either through home rule, or I think there's a process through the Attorney General's office. And we could, get some more information or detail around what that would look like as we get closer to that phase.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anything else? Yeah, thank you so much for being with us tonight, Mr. Moran, and to echo Councilor Hume's sentiments to the residents at home, please. The charter is in plain language. It's accessible, and encourage everybody to look at the whole thing, look at the parts you're interested, but get involved and stay tuned, and we'll be looking forward to the public participation process kicking off in January.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you to all of you, and thanks to Susan for your support in putting this presentation together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Moran. All right, now we'll move on to old business. As I started to say a little bit ago, the next two town council orders, we have a lot of public hearings on the agenda this evening. So the town council orders that are next on the list are public hearings that we have to open, and then we need to continue them. There are very specific guidelines for timing around opening a public hearing, which is why if you are a regular watcher of the council, you'll see that these have been on the council agenda for some time and continued. So both of these proposals, one is 22012 Mayor, the zoning bylaw text amendment for inclusionary housing, and the other one is 22037, Council President Tree Protection Ordinance. Both of these are with the Ordinance and Rules Committee. However, neither is ready to come before the council for a public hearing. So again, as a matter of form, we must vote to open the public hearings, and then we must vote to continue the public hearings. And unless any counselor objects, I would recommend we take these up with one vote and then continue them again with one vote. Okay.
Motion to open the public hearing on Order 22012 and Order 22037.
Second?
Thank you, Councilors Hume and Flaherty. Clerk Semino, roll call vote to open the public hearings. Yes.
Councilor Flaherty? Yes. Councilor Hume?
Aye.
Councilor Mackin is absent. Councilor Maglio?
Aye.
Councilor O'Brien?
Aye.
Councilor Reynolds?
Aye.
Councilor Ringus is absent. Councilor Ryan?
Aye.
That's 7 in favor, 0 opposed, 2 absent.
Is there a motion to continue the public hearings to January 3rd, 2023 at 7:30 p.m.?
There's a motion. Do I need to read these two orders?
Yes, please.
Motion to continue the public hearing for Order 22012 and Order 22037 to January 3rd, 2023 at 7:30 p.m.
Second?
Thank you, Councilors Hume and Flaherty. Clerk Semino, roll call vote to continue the public hearings.
Councilor Barrica?
Yes.
Councilor Flaherty?
Yes.
Councilor Hume?
Aye.
Councilor Maglio, I'm sorry, Councilor Mackin is absent. Councilor Maglio?
Aye.
Councilor O'Brien?
Aye.
Councilor Reynolds?
Aye.
Councilor Ringus is absent. Councilor Ryan?
Aye.
7 in favor, 0 opposed, 2 absent.
Thank you very much, Clerk Semino. All right, moving on to 22057, Braintree Retirement Board. Increase in the retirement benefit cost of living, known as COLA, base or take up any action relative thereto. This is also a public hearing, so we will, is there a motion to open the public hearing for Order 22057?
So moved.
Second?
Thank you, Councilors Hume and Flaherty. Clerk Semino, roll call vote to open the public hearing.
Councilor Barrica?
Yes.
Councilor Flaherty?
Yes.
Councilor Hume?
Aye.
Councilor Mackin is absent. Counselor Maglio,
Aye.
Counselor O'Brien,
Aye.
Counselor Reynolds,
Aye.
Counselor Ringus is absent, Counselor Ryan.
Aye.
With 7 in favor, 0 opposed, 2 absent.
Thank you very much, Clerk Semino. All right, with that, I will refer to Councilor Reynolds, our chairman of the Committee of Ways and Means, for a recommendation on Order 22057.
Thank you, Madam President. The council met on November 8th. The Ways and Means Committee met on November 8th and voted unanimously to recommend approval on motion 22057.
Thank you very much. All right, with that, I believe we have Mr. Gallagher here with us this evening. Thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the council. I am Dennis Gallagher, the director of the Braintree Retirement System, and I've been the director here since March of 2017. So this is a first tonight for the town of Braintree. As you all know, the Braintree Retirement System, we manage and take care of the Braintree Retirement System for the active employees and the retirees. And our retirees receive their monthly pension and the COLA, the cost of living adjustment that they receive on an annual basis is through a public hearing by the retirement board, and they vote up to a 3%. They have the authority to vote up to a 3% increase on the current COLA base on an annual basis. For the most part, over the years, a 3% COLA has been granted to the retirees. There have been few exceptions in the past where that has not been granted. But when it comes to the COLA base, which is currently at $12,000, in order to increase that base in a local system, that requires the authority of the legislative branch, which is in the town of Braintree, the town council. This has been brought up by my predecessor a few times at the retirement board level, and I even brought it up a few years ago. What we wanted to do, what we wanted to show the council and the residents of Braintree of how strong that our retirement system is, how we're better funded than some other systems, and why the need and ask for an increase in the COLA base would benefit our retirees. So that's what I hope to explain to you tonight, and hopefully you will approve the request as presented so our retirees can get some relief in the near future. In the state of Massachusetts, there are 104 retirement systems. We are one of the few states in the United States that have so many retirement systems. Some states just have one, but Massachusetts is a little different. We have 104. 102 of those are local systems. Some are county systems. Braintree, although is a member of Norfolk County, or part of Norfolk County, we are a standalone retirement system within the state, just as Quincy is, just as Weymouth is, just as Milton is, and other municipalities. Of those 104 systems, there are only 12 systems that currently maintain a $12,000 COLA base. There has been a big push the last 3 to 5 years to increase that COLA base on all other systems in Massachusetts. So we are one of the few we are one of 12 systems that currently have a $12,000 COLA base. And this has been brought to our attention many times by Mass Retirees, which is an advocacy group that advocate on behalf of retirees at the state and local level. In January of 2022, we began a valuation of our retirement system. And that valuation is done by our actuary. And that actuary presented to us figures and numbers that reflect the current health and status of our retirement system. And as I have pointed out in my presentation, or my package that I sent you, in 1997, the legislature passed the COLA base increase from $9,000 to $12,000 to all the systems. That was done by law. Since 1997, the Braintree retirement system has had a COLA base on the $12,000. Keep in mind that we have about 580 retirees in the town of Braintree. that they receive and rely on a monthly pension check every month. A little over 100 of those retirees don't even get $12,000 a year. Now, they might have only worked the minimum of 10 years, or they may have been your lower wage earners. But to them, and even those a little higher than that on a monthly basis, they rely on a COLA, a basic 3% COLA on that every year. It means a lot to them. It's small change, but that means a lot to them. Your higher wage earners, perhaps not so much, but to our retirees that were not higher wage earners or have become widowed or widowers, they do rely on that. And they do rely on any increase in a COLA that the Retirement Board approves in the spring. And we pay out on an annual basis in 2021 to those 580 retirees about $20.1 million in 2021. But the health of our system is what I hope that you take into consideration when you vote tonight. And that is our investment returns on the portfolio have been exceptional over the past 10 years. As shown in slide 5 of your presentation, 8 out of the last 10 years, we have had very good returns, well over 10% each year. In the last 3 years, we have had 18.5%, 13.9%, and 15.4% increase in our assets total. When we target about 7.5% a year, that's our goal. So anytime we can get over that, that means a lot. Obviously, there were two out of the last 10 years we had very small losses. And our assets have increased over the last 10 years from $150 million to, as of 1/1/2022, to $286 million in assets. Even though we're paying out about $20 million a year, our assets have increased. Our funded ratio, as of 1/1/2022, is 71.9%, and our goal is to get to 100%, obviously. But compared to other systems in Massachusetts, 71.9% is very, very good. And to have a $12,000 COLA base when we're a pretty solid system is the need to address this and do something for our retirees. So the COLA base analysis that I did, and the COLA bases range from $12,000 to $18,000 on $1,000 increments. Like I said, 12 systems are at 12,000, 19 systems are at 13. Most of the systems right now are at $14,000 base, which is 27 systems, 17 at 15,000, 13 systems are at 16,000, 4 at 17,000, and 12 at 18,000. And many of these systems who have a higher COLA base than Braintree are much less funded than we are, and their funded ratio is much less. I ask for your consideration tonight to do something to help our retirees. It's been a long time coming, and we think this will help. This isn't going to solve all their problems. This isn't going to, their money that they get for an increase is not going to go into a bank account. They're going to be spending that money. They're going to be spending that money at Shaw's or Stop and Shop or a coffee shop in Braintree or elsewhere. Because 60% of our retirees still live in Braintree or in a surrounding town that abuts Braintree. So that money is going to be spent here. You know, there is a cost to this, there's no question. Anytime you're asking for an increase in anything, when you negotiate contracts with unions and you give a 2% raise or whatever, a 2% cost, there's a cost to that. There is a cost to this. Don't get me wrong, there is a cost to this. And it will be reflected in the appropriation that goes into the town's budget on an annual basis. And as I have shown in the funded schedule that we have, and that is for fiscal 24, you paid for fiscal 23, the current fiscal year that you're in, the appropriation to the town of Braintree was $13.2 million. With the funding schedule that's in place, no matter what you approve tonight, the next 2 fiscal years are already set. So any changes in the COLA base will be reflected in the fiscal 26 appropriation when we do the revaluation as of 1/1/2024. Other factors will play into that appropriation: market trends, new employees, salary increases, and things of that nature. But certainly, a COLA-based increase will have a financial impact in the appropriation that the Retirement Board sends to the community. Our actuary did some numbers, and you have that in a memo dated November 8th. In that memo dated November 8th to the Retirement Board, there's 6 scenarios on that sheet, and the scenario that we are requesting is scenario number 6. And as you can see, the impact for that, July 1 of 2024 going to $13,000, and July 1 of 2025 going to $14,000, is about a $564,000 increase in the appropriation, based on the numbers that the actuary had to work with. And those numbers change all the time, because every month a retiree may pass. Every month a retiree, a member retires, and you might hire new employees. You may negotiate new contracts. The market this year is not doing that well, and hopefully we can recover some of the losses over the next 2 months. So many other factors go into that number, but based on the numbers the actuary had to work with in real time at that moment, that's what the cost would be to the appropriation. So that's something you need to take into consideration if this is adopted. I think that it's time to do something for our retirees, and it's been 25 years since the COLA base has been increased. And this has never been presented to the town of Braintree before. This is the first time that the Retirement Board has ever come to the council or even selectmen when you had them before this form of government. So we certainly don't want to come here every year. We hope we can take care of this year to help our retirees in the years ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gallagher. Before I open it up for questions, I do want to ask if anyone from the mayor's office would like to speak.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Good evening, everybody. I wanted to try and provide a little bit more background and context for how this recommendation came to be supported by the mayor, and why we feel it's important that this body move forward with the proposal as recommended and supported both by the mayor and I believe unanimously by the members of the Retirement Board. And I wanted to just make sure that we were clear about the financial impacts of increasing the COLA base, which the mayor completely supports and agrees is important and is something that is long overdue. As Director Gallagher said, this is not something that's been considered or even brought before this body for consideration in 25 years, and it is due time that we take this important step to support our retirees. That said, this is not a change that can be implemented responsibly overnight because of the amount of time it has remained flat and because of the financial implications it has on the town and the appropriation that would be required from the town to continue to fund this important benefit. So as you might recall, in this year's FY23 budget contained within the Human Resources Program is the pension fund line item. That total is just over $13 million, just over $10 million of which comes from the operating budget from the town. So when we're talking about FY26 appropriations on top of the existing obligation, we're talking about a responsibility on the town to include those additional funds in its operating budget for fiscal year 26. So by staggering the implementation through fiscal year 25 and fiscal year 26 in $1,000 increments each year, it allows the town to ensure that that is an additional financial burden of $564,100 at a minimum that can be supported when we look forward into the projected budgetary obligations for the town. In addition to that, it ensures that we're able to remain on track for a fully funded system by 2033. So there was a lot of discussion at Ways and Means, which was, I thought, a great discussion and conversation around, shouldn't we do this faster? And while I would love to stand here and say, of course we should do it faster, but that's not necessarily the only question that warrants consideration when evaluating the proposal. And so when you think about the financial liability on the town from its operating budget, which already is set to increase by $1 million each year, we're adding to that at least another $500,000 in financial liability that the town is going to have to provide for in order to implement this important change. And so when you have to consider the uncertainty in the market. We don't know how many people are going to retire. We don't know what the retirement board's pension obligations are going to be. But what we know is at a minimum, the proposed increase is going to require an additional $564,000 in fiscal year 26 in order to support the plan as provided and as authorized both by the mayor and approved by the retirement board. If we start to modify how the increase is to take effect, the result is twofold. The result is creating further uncertainty because these numbers will only grow, but it also then obligates the town to appropriate funds beyond those funds that the mayor has indicated he is prepared to authorize in order to support this increase. And so I just wanted to make sure that we were all clear where the money comes from and how this program gets funded, and that we've recognized, thank you, to Director Gallagher and the board for bringing this forward. We recognize that this is an item that needs to be addressed, but it is not an item that can be responsibly addressed overnight. And we believe that doing it in installments, going to $13,000 in fiscal 25 and $14,000 in fiscal 26, is a proposal that financially we can support and feel confident that we can fund, not just in 26 when those cost changes take effect, but also moving us forward through 2033 so that we can continue on our plan of a fully funded system. And so I hope that that kind of clarifies and addresses some of the discussion and concern that we had at last week's meeting. And again, just on behalf of the mayor, I want to thank Director Gallagher. I know Deb Stevens is here also with us from the retirement board, and Lieutenant Viola, one of our sitting members. And we would ask for this council's support for the proposal as provided in the recommendation, both from the mayor and from the board. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief of Staff Taub. Okay, this is a public hearing, but I'm going to offer up questions from the council to begin. So are there any questions from councilors on this issue? Councilor Reynolds? I'll recognize Councilor Reynolds and then...
Very good, thank you. Okay, Mr. Gallagher, let's ask you a few questions here. I know we had some discussion about this back on the 8th last week. And I want to direct my question to the memo from your KMS actuaries of November 8th. If you could, for the benefit of the council and those watching this evening, explain that in scenario number 4, which is a COLA base of $14,000 as of July 1st, 2024, there is some accrued liability numbers, normal costs, as well as what the appropriation would be to the town's operating budget. I see a number of $585,600. Is that correct? That my understanding would be is that that would be a liability increase for the town to pay if it was a $14,000 increase in in the start of fiscal year 25 versus a $13,000 increase, which you had highlighted in scenario number 6 of $564,100.
Yes.
Okay. So, and That would be an increase of, I'm just trying to take a look here at what these numbers, it's some $20,000? Is that-
Correct.
Okay. So, and that is what the additional increase to the town's operating budget's liability in that year, above and beyond, which I think the $1 million, which was referenced by the Chief of Staff.
Yes, based on the actuarial data that they had to work with at real time during this study, and there are other factors that could play into that number. It's not, it's at least this amount. It could be more based on other conditions, but at least.
Right, and I would agree with you that there are certainly other factors involved here. There is the value of the benefit versus what the risk. Having a number of years in the financial industry, I certainly understand there is no crystal ball that's going to tell us how performance of the economy, performance of the stock market, there are a number of influences upon performance of the stock market. We've seen it this year. We've had a very rough and tumble time since 2020. We've seen some gains. We've seen other difficult stretches of our economy where we're not getting the return that we're used to seeing. I have to applaud your guidance, your oversight of our funds, that also with the committee, for your choices, your risk assessments, and what you've employed to provide the type of return that the town has seen. It's very, very admirable, the accelerated schedule that the town has achieved as far as paying off its unfunded liability, which is 2033. As things project now, and of course that could change once, I think it's 2 years down the road, you'll have another assessment.
Yes. Have to do it every 2 years, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And what I understand all of these factors, certainly understand these factors. There's also the factor of the operation of the town itself and the needs, financial needs of the town in our operating budget. There are a number of things that influence that as well. I am a little bit concerned at this point in time about our abilities to meet all our demands. However, again, I go back to the first thing I stated, that there is a balance that has to be achieved here between the value, the benefit to our retirees, and the risks to our operating environment as well, and our ability to pay those bills. Just one other question, if I have, Madam President, and that is, you had stated in the performance of the funds through the years that there was a dip, the board had voted in favor of providing the 3% increase on an annual basis, with the exception of a couple of different outlying years. Could you just give me a little bit of insight, very high level, what contributed to those decisions with those years where they weren't increased?
Basically, the financial condition of the town. We didn't, from what I understand, this was all, those years were all done before I arrived, but my understanding, at one point, there was like a 2% increase or 2.5% increase recommended, and I think it went down to 2. But it really was based on the financial condition of the town. If the town is really struggling and is looking to cut a lot of people, the last thing the retirement board wants to do is to make that any more difficult.
Right.
So that's why the COLA that year we knew would have an impact on their assessment going forward. So for a couple of years we backtracked on that, and we have worked very well with the mayor's office, current mayor and his predecessor, to agree on, hey, we want to help them out. We certainly don't want to send them a $2 million extra bill, or to you, actually, you approved the budget. We do not want to do that. And anytime we can work with the administration and the legislation to help you guys out, we would do that. And those years were an example of that.
Okay. There were layoffs, I know. I think one of those years anyways that I could point to, that results in less money going into the system as well. So these are I guess what we're trying to do is to illuminate all of the various factors of consideration here that go into this decision. Thank you. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilor Reynolds. Councilor Maglio.
I was one of the people at the last meeting at Ways and Means that had a lot of questions
Sure,
about
sure.
how it was phased in, and the information that you provided at that meeting, the information we've gotten tonight, phone calls and research I've done since then, I just wanted to let you know that I am fully on board, and all of that information was very helpful, and I understand the cautious approach, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Councilor Maglio. Councilor Flaherty?
I'm very glad to know that we are, to hear this proposal that we move the COLA base from 12,000 to 14,000. It will put us closer to the middle of the pack, where before we were in the back of the pack. I think that is right and appropriate, and it's good that we're going to be able to do that for our retirees. I found the details provided tonight on why it's important to divide the increase over 2 years to be very helpful and also very persuasive. So I will be happy to support this tonight. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Flaherty. At this time, I would ask if there's any members of the public who wish to speak. Okay, seeing none. I just did want to add, I think that thank you to our Ways and Means Committee and Chairman Reynolds. I know that there was a ton of conversation, research, and work that went into this, as there is for everything that that committee tackles. And I also want to say, you know, I give great deference to the judgment of our retirement board, who have the nuts and bolts of this down, and I'm very grateful. I see Lieutenant Viola here, but grateful for their attention to the detail on this. And I think that the proposal that the retirement board has scrubbed and provided to us tonight, it really strikes me that it's a responsible balance between being fiscally responsible in this staggered approach and also making sure we're taking good care of our retirees, townspeople in many cases, but our town employees who served the town for so many years in good stead. So I too will be happy to support the proposal as it came to us this evening. With that, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion to close the public hearing on order 2205.
Thank you very much, Councilors Hume and Flaherty. Clerk Semino, roll call vote to close the public hearing, please.
Counselor Baraka?
Yes.
Counselor Flaherty?
Yes.
Counselor Hume?
Aye.
Counselor Mackin is absent. Counselor Maglio?
Aye.
Counselor O'Brien?
Aye.
Counselor Reynolds?
Aye.
Counselor Ringus is absent. Counselor Ryan?
Aye.
That's 7 in favor, 0 opposed, 2 absent.
Thank you very much, Clerk Semino. Now I'll ask, is there a motion for Order 22057?
The motion that pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 32, Section 103J, the retirement benefit cost of living base be increased from $12,000 to $13,000 in fiscal year '25 and $14,000 in fiscal year '26. So moved.
Second.
Thank you very much, Councilors Hume and Flaherty. Clerk Semino, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Counselor Baraka?
Yes.
Counselor Flaherty?
Yes.
Counselor Hume?
Aye.
Counselor Mackin is absent. Counselor Maglio?
Aye.
Counselor O'Brien?
Aye.
Counselor Reynolds?
Aye.
Counselor Ringus is absent. Counselor Ryan?
Aye.
7 in favor, 0 opposed, 2 absent.
The motion passes. Congratulations, Mr. Gallagher. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Retirees will appreciate this.
Good.
All right, moving on to our next public hearing for the evening. It is number 22062, Mayor Authorization to Accept and Appropriate Opioid Settlement Funds or take up any action relative thereto. So first, is there a motion to open the public hearing for Order 22062?
So moved.
Thank you, Councilors Hume and Flaherty. Clerk Semino, roll call vote to open the public hearing.
Counselor Baraka,
Yes.
Counselor Flaherty,
Yes.
Counselor Hume,
Aye.
Counselor Mackin is absent, Counselor Maglio,
Aye.
Counselor O'Brien,
Aye.
Counselor Reynolds,
Aye.
Counselor Ringus is absent, Counselor Ryan,
Aye.
7 in favor, 0 opposed, 2 absent.
Thank you very much. And with that, I will refer to Councilor Reynolds, Chairman of the Committee of Ways and Means, for that committee's recommendation on Order 22062.
Thank you, Madam President. The Ways and Means Committee met previously and voted unanimously for recommended approval to the full council on matter 22062.
Thank you very much, Chairman Reynolds. Would anyone from the mayor's office like to speak on this?
Thank you very much, Madam President. As members of this body might recall, in May of 2018, the town joined nationwide litigation against opioid manufacturers and distributors as it related to their role in driving the opioid epidemic. The lawsuit was filed in federal court and is part of what we refer to as multi-district litigation, where you'll hear about trials and settlements happening in pockets of the country, and for us, obviously, focusing on those settlements happening here through the Attorney General's office. What Massachusetts, through its Attorney General, was able to do was negotiate a deal that settlements would yield a higher percentage of 40% to those municipalities that are engaged in the litigation and stand to recover funds as part of any settlement that is reached. As individual settlements with manufacturers or distributors are reached, it requires a vote of a certain number of involved municipalities in order to accept the terms of that particular settlement. We have a finalized settlement with Johnson & Johnson that is going to yield to the town just over $197,000. This is the first of what I anticipate to be many settlements with these companies as we continue to move forward in the litigation and resolution process. In order to be able to appropriate those funds for use, we need a vote of this body in order to comply with the DOR regulations. Once the funds have been appropriated, the state has provided us with a very specific set of categories for eligible expenditures utilizing these funds. Where we stand to gain a significant amount of money through these settlements, the mayor, in working with Lynn Frano from the partnership, has established a task force that will be engaged in recommending potential opportunities for expenditures as these funds continue to come in and be deposited into our account. The payments from Johnson & Johnson, this is the total. We received the first 2 in installments and are going to receive the balance in a lump sum this year. And so we're seeking authorization for that full value in order to be able to begin to expend those monies in accordance with the guidelines provided. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief of Staff Taub. Are there any counselors who have questions on this? Counselor Hume?
Thank you, Madam President. So the task force is going to be tasked with recommending so who has the final say in how the funds are being spent?
The final authorization would lie with the mayor.
The mayor, okay. And I know Lieutenant Viola is with us, who's on this task force. So I had asked who was on this, and the list is pretty impressive. I'm happy with this, and I thank all these people who are participating in this, and that's, I'm looking forward to seeing where this money is going to be put to good use, especially with harm reduction and education. So I know with the people who are on this, that will happen.
Absolutely. Thank you, Counselor Hume. Did you have anything else? Okay. Any other counselors? I have one question or point of clarification. You mentioned that the municipalities who were involved in the legal goings-on for this have to all accept the funding?
So once a settlement is tentatively reached with the Attorney General's office, the terms of the settlement go out to the involved municipalities. And in order for the settlement to be approved, a certain percentage of the involved municipalities need to vote to accept the terms. And so that will happen as each individual settlement is reached. The municipalities will vote to accept or reject, and then it will move forward in that fashion. In this case, it was an overwhelming majority voted to accept the terms of the Johnson & Johnson, and I think particularly because there was a last-minute push to increase the percentage allocated to the locals.
Thank you. You answered my question I hadn't even asked yet, so I appreciate that. And thank you, Councilor Hume, for recognizing Lieutenant Viola, and I also want to thank the 15-member task force who will assist in the disbursement of these funds. As Councilor Hume said, these are community members who all have a great deal of expertise in a wide range of fields that I think will really provide a benefit for the town, and grateful for their service. And I would appreciate an update as those funds get dispersed or recommended, if that can come back to the council so we can let residents know how those funds are being used. I think that would be really beneficial.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the public who would like to speak on this evening? Okay, seeing none, I would ask then, is there a motion to close the public hearing for Order 22062?
So moved.
Thank you, Councilors Hume and Flaherty. Clerk Semino, roll call vote to close the public hearing.
Counselor Barica?
Yes.
Counselor Flaherty?
Aye.
Counselor Hume?
Aye.
Counselor Mackin is absent. Counselor Maglio?
Aye.
Counselor O'Brien?
Aye.
Counselor Reynolds?
Aye.
Counselor Ringus is absent. Counselor Ryan?
Aye.
7 in favor, 0 opposed, 2 absent.
Thank you very much. And with that, is there a motion for Order 22062?
Madam President, a motion that the town vote to appropriate the sum of $197,087.21 from the Massachusetts State Subdivision for statewide opioid settlement funds to be expended in accordance with the policies set forth therein, or take up any action relative thereto.
Second?
Thank you, Councilors Hume and Flaherty. Clerk Semino, roll call vote, please.
Counselor Barica?
Yes.
Counselor Flaherty?
Aye.
Counselor Hume?
Aye.
Counselor Mackin is absent. Counselor Maglio?
Aye.
Counselor O'Brien?
Aye.
Counselor Reynolds?
Aye.
Counselor Ringus is absent. Counselor Ryan?
Aye.
It's 7 in favor, 0 opposed, 2 absent.
The motion passes. Congratulations. All right, moving on to our next public hearing for the evening. Now we're moving to 22063, Mayor. Bond authorization for MWRA inflow and infiltration, I&I funds, or take up any action relative thereto. Is there a motion to open the public hearing for Order 22063?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Councilors Hume and Flaherty. Clerk Semino, roll call to open the public hearing.
Counselor Barica?
Yes.
Counselor Flaherty?
Aye.
Counselor Hume?
Aye.
Counselor Mackin is absent. Counselor Maglio?
Aye.
Counselor O'Brien?
Aye.
Counselor Reynolds?
Aye.
Counselor Ringus is absent. Counselor Ryan?
Aye.
7 in favor, 0 opposed, 2 absent.
Thank you very much, Clerk Semino. And I will now refer to Councilor Reynolds, again, Chairman of the Committee of Ways and Means, for the recommendation on Order 22063.
Thank you once again, Madam President. Again, the Committee on Ways and Means met on November 8th and voted unanimously to recommend approval for this motion to the full council, motion 22063.
Thank you very much, Chairman Reynolds. Anyone from the mayor's office would like to speak? Welcome back.
Thank you. So this request is part of a multi-phase plan to complete wastewater system rehabilitation projects. You often hear it referred to as I&I, inflow and infiltration. Most recently, in the winter of 2019, we authorized funding for phases 11 through 13 of the project. And this is a request to move us into phase 14. Earlier this fall, with recommendations from the MWA Advisory Board, the Board of Directors approved an additional $100 million in community grant funding and interest-free loans to support the program through fiscal year 30. The recommendation includes funds to be allocated to participating municipalities in the form of 75% grant-funded and 25% interest-free loans with a 10-year repayment program. So what this means for us is, in addition to the $14,419,000 that we have been allocated through this fiscal year, it would give us an additional $2,030,000 to complete phase 4 of the project, bringing our total of just over $16 million in funding through the MWRA for this work. Much like the recent authorization for the Tri-Town SRF funding program, even though we're not going to expend the full value of the appropriation, we are required to show that we have authorization to borrow the full amount, which will then be split in the 75%, 25% allocations according to the grant funding program.
Thank you very much, Chief of Staff Taub. Any counselors have questions on this? Okay. Sorry, I'm looking up my own questions. 1 second. All right. And this is a public hearing, so are there any members of the public who would like to speak on this? Okay. All right, seeing none. Is there a motion to close the public?
Moved.
Second. Thank you very much, Councilors Hume, Flaherty. Clerk Semino, roll call vote to close the public hearing.
Council Baraka,
Yes.
Council Flaherty,
Yes.
Council Hume,
Aye.
Council Mackin is absent, Council Maglio,
Aye.
Council O'Brien,
Aye.
Council Reynolds,
Aye.
Council Ringus is absent, Council Ryan,
Aye.
7 in favor, 0 opposed, 2 absent.
Thank you very much, Clerk Semino. All right, is there a motion for Order 22063?
Motion that the town of Braintree appropriates the sum of $2,030,000 to pay costs of wastewater rehabilitation projects, Phase 14, and for the payment of all other costs incidental and related thereto, and that to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the mayor, is authorized to borrow said amount under and pursuant to Chapter 44, Section 7(1) of the general laws, or pursuant to any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes of the town therefore.
Second?
Thank you very much, Councilors Hume and Flaherty. Clerk Semino, roll call vote, please.
Council Baraka,
Yes.
Council Flaherty,
Yes.
Council Hume,
Aye.
Council Mackin is absent, Council Maglio,
Aye.
Council O'Brien,
Aye.
Council Reynolds,
Aye.
Council Ringus is absent, Council Ryan,
Aye.
7 in favor, 0 opposed, 2 absent.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I believe that concludes our public hearings for the evening, and we will now move on to 05222, Council President, Town Auditor Contract Discussion, or take up any action relative thereto. Again, I will turn to Chairman Reynolds for the Committee of Ways and Means recommendation.
Thank you, Madam President. We did meet on November 8th as a full committee, and prior to that, we had met 2 other times on this topic to discuss the town auditor's contract. Those dates being September 27th, October 11th, and again this past November 8th. We discussed renewing the contract for the current town auditor, which is Clifton Larson Allen, as well as a possibility of going out for RFPs. As the council may be aware, or is aware, there is no requirement for us to do an RFP on a town auditor, and in this case, so we voted in favor of recommending the full council a new proposed contract for Clifton Larson Allen. We would like to review this contract and report back to the full council as that corporation.
Thank you very much, Chairman Reynolds. Are there any councilors who would like to speak on this? Councilor Flaherty?
For my part, I think CA has done a great job for us in Braintree. They have a depth of knowledge about our local government and our budget. I think Sean Goldrick, who's been their representative to us, has been excellent to work with. And the last time that we had negotiations for a new contract with them, it was clear to me that they were negotiating in good faith, and they gave us a good deal when we pushed back on some of the terms that they put forward initially, and I appreciated that. So it's my feeling that it is a wise choice to negotiate with them directly, and I think that I have every reason to believe that there will be a good outcome to that effort.
Thank you, Councilor Flaherty. Councilor Hume.
Thank you, Madam President. I thank the Ways and Means Committee for this recommendation. It's fully supported. I will be supporting this. Clifton Larson Allen has been with us for many years, and they bring to the council, in my opinion, a knowledge base that was not here in the past, and give us a lot of guidance and support in issues before us. And the review, the extent of the review that they provide is quite extensive and knowledgeable, and I am fully supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Hume. I'd like to add also my thanks to the Ways and Means Committee. For residents who may not know, the town auditor reports to the town council, is hired by the town council, and serves as not only our expert in municipal finance and accounting, but also brings with them a wealth of expertise on the financial health and history of Braintree, as Councilor Flaherty said. And I agree. I feel that Clifton Larson Allen has demonstrated in its actions and in the work it does with us on a day in and day out basis to be fair and really a valued partner in all ways to this body, providing us with thoughtful and detailed analysis, which really informs our decision making on behalf of the residents and serves as oversight on the town's spending. So I, again, thank the Ways and Means Committee. I know they did a very thorough job on this, and I'm looking forward to a competitive and fair proposal for you to come back to the council with. So thank you for that. Is there a motion on this?
Motion. Oh.
Counselor Ryan, you want to speak?
Yes,
Is that
please.
okay?
Yep, I recognize Councilor Ryan.
Go right ahead.
Thank you. I agree with the approach that the Ways and Means wants to take. I too just want to make sure that we get competitive pricing from CLA. You know, when you don't go out to bid, there's only going to be one company supplying wages, and want to make sure that they sharpen their pencil and give us a good price. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilor Ryan. Okay. Is there a motion?
A motion to request a new proposed contract from Clifton Larson Allen.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilors Hume and Flaherty. Clerk Semino, roll call vote, please.
Counselor Baraka?
Yes.
Counselor Flaherty?
Aye.
Counselor Hume?
Aye.
Counselor Mackin is absent. Counselor Maglio?
Aye.
Counselor O'Brien?
Aye.
Counselor Reynolds?
Aye.
Counselor Ringus is absent. Counselor Ryan?
Aye.
That's 7 in favor, 0 opposed, 2 absent.
Thank you very much, Clerk Semino. Moving on to 06322, President Baraka 2023 Council Meeting Calendar for review and adoption. You have all received a copy of the proposed 2023 Town Council Meeting Calendar. So we would like to get these dates set for the 2023 calendar year so we can book the required conference rooms, let residents know when we'll be meeting. So I want to just open it up, make sure if there's any questions or concerns about the dates set forth, we can address them. Any counselor have any questions or comments on the proposed 2023 calendar?
Motion to accept the 2023 town. Did they have a question? Oh, sorry.
No, thank you.
Motion to accept the 2023 town council meeting calendar.
Second.
Thank you, Councilors Hume and Flaherty. Clerk Semino, roll call vote, please. Yes.
Counselor Flaherty?
Yes.
Counselor Hume?
Aye.
Counselor Mackin is absent. Counselor Maglio?
Aye.
Counselor O'Brien?
Aye.
Counselor Reynolds?
Aye.
Counselor Ringus is absent. Counselor Ryan?
Aye.
7 in favor, 0 opposed, 2 absent.
Thank you very much. All right. That concludes our old business for this evening. We will now move on to new business. 06722, Council President, open meeting law complaint or take up any action relative thereto. By way of background, on October 20th, 2022, the council received an open meeting law complaint from resident Crystal Evans regarding locked doors at Town Hall during a public meeting. All councilors received a copy of the complaint. As relayed to councilors via email on October 31st, as chair of the public body, I requested and received from the Division of Open Government an extension to November 30th, 2022 to review and respond to Ms. Evans' complaint. Additionally, prior to Ms. Evans filing the complaint and that being received, an inquiry was made by Councilor Flaherty to the town solicitor concerning the locked doors. The response to that inquiry was provided last night by the town solicitor, which all councilors also received a copy of. So I have asked the town solicitor to join us this evening to discuss this with us, answer questions councilors may have. So Solicitor Taub, if you don't mind taking the podium.
Thank you. Again, wearing a slightly different hat
Yep.
this time. As was indicated by President Baraka, I think we all recall, myself included, on the evening of October 18th, Mr. Hansen, in fact, had left the building during the course of the meeting and after 9 p.m. attempted to enter back through the door directly into Cahill Auditorium, which was locked. Mr. Hansen knocked on the window, at which time I actually got up and allowed him access into the room. So a little bit of background that was considered in reviewing the complaint filed by Ms. Evans. The system for the doors in Town Hall are set through computer software that we operate through Beld, and all of the doors are on the same system, and you either lock all of them or none of them, and there's not a manual option for the doors. So when we have evening meetings, we try to estimate how late the doors need to stay open in order to cover the duration of the meeting. As we all know, that is an impossible feat because we can never predict how long or how short some of these public bodies are going to be meeting, including the council. And so in order to balance the safety component of ensuring that the building is secure with access to the building, knowing that during meetings there are not only people participating in the meeting, but there is always a member of the facilities staff in the building as well, we try to strike a balance. And interestingly enough, this is not the first time that this issue has presented itself, and there are a slew of decisions from the Attorney General's office in the form of advisory opinions that consider this very set of circumstances around locked doors when meetings are ongoing and what is truly considered access or denial of access under the open meeting law. The short answer is, in this case, where nobody was actually prevented or precluded from participating in the meeting because they were granted immediate access by knocking on the door, there is no violation of the open meeting law that has been substantiated here. Notwithstanding, there are certain possibilities or potential scenarios where in that same circumstance, if someone had not heard the knock or was not available to open the door, the potential for a violation does exist, and that has prompted us to consider the system by which we maintain the security of the building, particularly on evenings when there are meetings that may go past the 9 or 9:30 mark where the door is typically set to lock. Some of those include, asking the clerk or the department head responsible for the meeting to let us know, do you expect this is going to go past 9 o'clock so that we can reset the doors? It's ensuring that the small handful of people that have access to the software, which again is for security reasons, can do that remotely. So for example, this evening we have set up, the doors are open, they are going to remain open, and then I'm going to make a phone call so that somebody remotely can lock the system once the meeting has concluded. We've also talked about propping a door, putting a sign on the door, all of these things to help prevent even the potential for a future violation to occur because of the the decision or the determination or need to lock the doors to make sure, quite frankly, that they're not open past when everybody leaves, because then we have a wholly unsecured building, which presents a different risk and a different liability for us. So, evaluating all of those options and taking measures to ensure that this is not even a possibility, but even despite those things, the recommendation from my office, based on the series of advisory opinions the Attorney General's office has provided, is that at the meeting of October 18th, there was no violation of the open meeting law.
Thank you very much, Solicitor Taub. And for counselors and residents watching, the council has taken steps that will be in part of our process going forward to ensure that the doors are unlocked for the entire duration of our meeting. And thank you to Clerk Semino for working with our town's facility staff to ensure that going forward, that is always the case. So one of the things we need to do is decide what to do with the complaint. I do want to allow counselors to ask questions of the solicitor if there are any regarding either the opinion that came to us last night or the process before us. Councilor Maglio, did you have a question?
Well, I guess before I ask questions, you were about to say we need to determine what we're going to do with the complaint.
So there's a prescribed process, and it's, pardon me, took off my glasses.
You can second for discussion if you want to do that.
I didn't hear what you said.
I can read a motion, and then you can second for discussion, or do you have a question through you, Madam President?
So let me, thank you, Councilor Hume. Thank you, Councilor Maglio. All right, so I think your question is, what is the process by which this body has to make a determination on the complaint? And I have, thanks to Clerk Semino in front of me, so the public body may delegate this responsibility of responding to the complaint to an individual member of the public body, its counsel, or a staff member after the public body has met to review the complaint. So our task is to review and respond to the complaint in writing, both to the complainant and to the Division of Open Government. I requested an extension to have this discussion and file a formal response by November 30th. That extension was granted.
So a follow-up question to that. For our deliberation on what to do, is that something that we would discuss tonight in concert with the solicitor, or is that something we would discuss at a different time?
That can be done this evening, because we do have because Councilor Flaherty made an inquiry and the solicitor's office was working on that, and we have is decision the right term, Solicitor Taub?
I think what you have before you, I think that's a great question, Councilor Maglio, because the posture of this complaint is somewhat different than the posture of the previous complaint. What you have before you is a legal recommendation that analyzes the facts set forth in the complaint and the corresponding legal precedent through the Attorney General's office in the form of those advisory opinions. So what this body, I would suggest, do is discuss the complaint. Any concerns with the recommendation or questions with regards to the recommendation, and then this body can certainly vote to adopt the recommendations and respond in accordance with those. It can choose to adopt a different resolution, but I think given the November 30th deadline provided by the Attorney General's office, there would need to be some determined resolution out of this body this evening.
Does that answer your question, Councilor?
It does answer my question.
Yeah.
So I do have some questions then for the solicitor.
Yes, so I just ask if everybody can ask one, and then we can go around a second time, and if there's no others, then you certainly can ask follow-up, Councilor Maglio. So go right ahead, the floor is yours.
So was there, I'm wondering if there was a meeting, and I don't know if that's part of this process, but in the complaint, in the alleged violation, it mentioned that someone had already been outside. And I subsequently learned that that person also had been outside for quite some time. I don't know whether it was at 8:30 that they arrived, or 9, or 9:15. And so I'm wondering, is there any back and forth that happens to get more information from the person making the complaint?
There certainly can be that back and forth, but in this case, based on the information that we had, no, using the Attorney General's definition of denied access, we didn't have any information that somebody was not ultimately granted access and the ability to participate in the meeting. And so the decision was, recommended decision remains intact, that that evening there was no violation.
Okay, because so I guess that would be something that I would, that I'm just confused about in terms of it saying, as I was leaving, I encountered an individual outside of the locked accessible entrance trying to get in. It doesn't mention whether they did get in or not. Ostensibly, when they were leaving, that could have been the opportunity to let the person in. But it's unclear how long they were there. So I don't know that there was a lot that was in this that had to do with the timing. So that's just something to think about. I have other questions, but I'll yield.
Anyone else have other questions? Councilor Maglio for the second time.
Okay, so the recommendations that are included in this particular write-up, amending the system, having different people be in charge of when the doors open and close. So so that's something that's already started happening, right? Yes. So any time that town hall that there's anything happening here, someone is manually going to change the timing? Is that?
Yeah, so basically the way the system works is you can set the doors to lock or unlock at set periods of time. So you can preset them, or somebody can log into the system and manually lock them so that they all then subsequently lock. So on a night like tonight, they are set to stay open until a certain time that is well beyond the time that we are here, and I would like to hope well beyond the time any of us are here. And because of that, we know what we're trying to avoid is an empty building with unlocked doors, because our facilities staff in the evening, we're already beyond end of shift for them, so their end time then becomes when the meeting concludes and everybody vacates. So at that point, when the meeting concludes, I will then send a text message to another individual from the mayor's office and say, the meeting has concluded, please lock the doors, and then the facility staff will ensure that they are in fact locked before they leave. And so that is one way. It's not always going to work, just depending on availability, but right now that was the most immediate implementable change we were able to make.
So is that written up somewhere as part of procedures? Does someone know if they're having if their committee or their group or their team is meeting, they know to get in contact with you or someone else in order to have someone make the call or make the change?
So we will communicate that through the department heads down through to their boards. With the exception of this body, I think most of our boards meet under the direction of a department head, so that individual will then have the line of communication. And it will likely become part of when the room is reserved. For example, when you reserve the room, let us know how late you think you're going to need it, and then verify kind of the communication protocol for how the doors are going to get locked at the conclusion.
Right, because that's what I was thinking about, is in terms of if there's the farmer's market is here, if there's a craft market here, if somebody's decorating something for an event happening the next day, there's all of these other times that someone may want to get in that doesn't go through that larger point person.
Those organizations and those events go through a special event permit process. So the start and end times for access are part of the permitting approval, so we have that separately. But our obligation for access for those kind of more social events are different, certainly, from our obligations to provide access under the open meeting law. But we still track the times, and because we reserve the room and we confirm staffing and any need for additional staffing. So we have all of that information.
Okay, one more, just so I'm perfectly clear.
Sure.
So then this policy is obviously it's in response to an open meeting violation, accusation, and it relates to council meetings and official business. That policy, then, it can be part of the wider way that the building operates, but it's not necessarily related to that. It's just specifically related to official town business, because that's what the open meeting violation.
Well, it's to, that protocol would be implemented directly in order to ensure compliance with the open meeting law. The open meeting law doesn't apply to some of those other events, and so the same would not necessarily be true. But on a lot of events like that, they have a start and an end time, right? And so we know if the farmer's market is indoors and it ends at 1 o'clock, if we leave the doors open, say for an extra hour, that gives people enough time to come in and out while they're loading their vehicles and leaving. It's a finite period of time. Whereas our meetings, they don't have an end time. It's not like a party where we say 7:30 to 9 and then everybody has to go home. And so the need for additional flexibility is inherent in that uncertainty.
Okay, thank you.
And Councilor Maglio, if I might, to help clarify, and so that we're all clear, I think we're sort of two different things we're talking about. One is a formal response, and the solicitor's findings are that this incident did not constitute an open meeting law violation. That's one piece of it. The second piece, which is policy oriented and not more, I guess, legal, if you will, in nature, is how we're going to make sure that open meeting law violation or not, for what's in our purview as counselors, that the doors are open at all times and unlocked.
Yep.
I can assure you that that is addressed, it sounds like that for town events or board meetings that are outside the purview of the council, that is also being addressed. I just want to make sure we're clear on the response is one thing because we have to make a determination of finding versus the policy that we're going to implement because we want people to have access to our meetings.
Yep. Great.
Councilor Flaherty?
So I just want to make sure that I'm clear. It sounds like because you are so often involved in the open meetings the public meetings that we have here, you are the intended point person to be the person who makes the call to say it's over, you can lock up.
So for this evening, it is me. Moving forward, if it's not me, it would be, for example, I would request it be Clerk Semino in this case. If it's a planning board meeting, it could be Director Santucci-Razzi. If it's Board of Health, it could be Director McGrath, because I do not attend all of the meetings. But certainly for the ones that I do attend, I can be the conduit of information, but it would be the goal to make sure that one representative from each of these bodies has the contact information to ensure that the doors get locked when the meeting is concluded, if they're scheduled to stay open much later than the meeting ends.
So who is responsible for telling the person on the ZBA or the health department or whatever, who is responsible for assigning the individual who will be the person who makes the phone call at the end?
So we will put the direction out to the department heads and ask the department heads to designate someone. I think, I will say candidly, I'm not aware, as I stand here in the time that I've been in this role or in my prior, of this being raised as a concern. And so I'm not sure that the concern exists for many of our other boards, if maybe they don't meet as late or they start earlier, whatever the case may be. But it would be incumbent on my office to notify the department heads and the department heads to offer us a contact person who would maintain responsibility for that.
Okay.
Motion?
I will offer a motion to adopt the recommended finding of no violation as set forth in the memorandum dated November 14th, 2022 from the Town Solicitor's Office, which we all received a copy of.
Is there a second?
Second.
Clerk Semino, roll call vote, please.
Counsel Baraka,
Yes.
Counsel Flaherty,
Yes.
Counselor Hume,
Aye.
Counselor Mackin is absent, Counselor Meglio,
Aye.
Counselor O'Brien,
Aye.
Counselor Reynolds,
Aye.
Counselor Ringus is absent, Counselor Ryan,
Aye.
7 in favor, 0 opposed, 2 absent.
Thank you very much, Solicitor Taub, and please pass along our thanks to Solicitor Huff, who wrote the memo. All right.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Yes, thank you. With that, is there a motion to move all orders under new business to their respective committees?
Motion to refer to the Committee of Ways and Means the following orders: 22065, the mayor tax rate classification, or take up any action, relative thereto. 22066, council president appointment, town auditor, or take up any action relative thereto. 22067, mayor reappointment, Braintree contributory retirement board, Edward J. Spellman Jr., or take up any action relative thereto. 22068, mayor reappointment, Braintree contributory retirement board, Joseph R. Driscoll Jr., or take up any action relative thereto. 22069, mayor acceptance of donations, or take up any action relative thereto. Too many R's.
Second?
Thank you, Councilors Hume and Flaherty. Clerk Semino, roll call vote, please.
Counsel Baraka,
Yes.
Counselor Flaherty,
Yes.
Counselor Hume,
Aye.
Counselor Mackin is absent, Counselor Meglio,
Aye.
Counselor O'Brien,
Aye.
Counselor Reynolds,
Aye.
Counselor Ringus is absent, Counselor Ryan,
Aye.
7 in favor, 0 opposed, 2 absent.
Thank you very much, Clerk Semino. Our next meeting will be on Tuesday, December 6, 2022 at 7:30 p.m. I also want to note there will be a special Tri-Town Board meeting held on December 15th, 2022 at 7 p.m. That will include the council, the planning board, and the master plan steering committee, so please save the date. All are welcome to attend. With that, thank you so much to our BCAM team, Wes Ray, Bill Needham, and Jerry Comack, the entire crew, for always televising our meetings, getting it live streamed on YouTube. It brings the council to the residents, and it is a huge help, so thank you, BCAM. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you very much, Councilors Hume and Flaherty. Clerk Semino, roll call to adjourn.
Counselor Baraka,
Yes.
Counselor Flaherty,
Yes.
Counselor Hume,
Aye.
Counselor Mackin is absent, Counselor Meglio,
Aye.
Counselor O'Brien,
Aye.
Counselor Reynolds,
Aye.
Counselor Ringus is absent, Counselor Ryan, all in favor to adjourn.
Thank you. This meeting is adjourned.